Hey fellow cartographers, it's Josh with Map Effects, and in today's video I want to show you how I like to create interesting coastlines and continent shapes using this Coastliner brush that I created, and you can actually get for free right now on the Map Effects website. So let's start mapping. Often when we begin drawing a fantasy map, we start with a blank page, and this can be really intimidating to even know where to start. It's like, do you just start inking in a coastline somewhere over here? You start scribbling something in here? It can just feel really overwhelming, and especially because you're using this really precise liner brush. I find that there's a better way to go about this that allows you to kind of block in some shapes and get a little bit of organic randomness and texture. So what I did was I created a Coastliner brush that you can see here, and I'll pull up the shape so you can kind of get an idea for it. This is just based off a rocky texture that I photographed at one point, and I kind of refined it a little bit and changed the settings and increased the scatter so that it would jump around a little bit, and changed the rotation so that it would just have an element of randomness to it. So what I like to do is I'll actually switch to a darker brown color here, and I'm just working on the layer above my paper texture. And I like to put this brush at a pretty decent size. So what I then will do is I'll just kind of come in here and start roughing in some shapes, just like this. You can fill this all in if you want. And then I'll actually use the eraser tool with the same brush selected, and I'll begin to just kind of carve into this shape a little bit. And you can kind of move it back and forth. You can increase the size of this if you want. But the nice thing is you can really focus on the composition of the map rather than getting lost in the little details of trying to draw the coastline and make sure that it's properly jagged. This kind of eliminates all that because it's doing it for you automatically. So you can just kind of come in here and push these shapes around. You can go, oh, you know what? I think I want to have another piece of the continent over here and make this a little bit more of a channel. And you can just kind of refine this back. And you just kind of keep moving back and forth with it until you're happy with a shape. And the other thing that I'll bring up at this point, let's just clear this for now, is there's a real tendency when you start drawing maps to want to keep everything within the confines of your canvas. So you end up doing something like this, and you end up with a kind of a roughly rectangular shape because you want all of it to fit on your canvas or on your piece of paper. But as soon as you, like if this was a continent and you made this a bigger map and put it on the map, it's going to really clearly look like a rectangle. And this isn't what you want to do. What I like to think about doing is trying to intentionally make sure that my continent or the region that I'm mapping goes off the map. So just something like that. So then you don't end up with these roughly rectangular or square shaped continents that look really awkward, especially when you put them on a full world map. And the other nice thing about doing something like this is it builds an element of mystery to it. You know, it's like, what's over here? That's something that you can expand on in later stories or campaigns or things. But if you show everything all up front, there's no mystery. Even if you look at the map of Middle Earth, you know, it's primarily this continent shape here, and the coastline's over here, and obviously this isn't a direct replica, but you get my point. But everything over here is pretty much left unknown for the most part, and it's a fairly small portion of the world that you're looking at when it comes to Middle Earth. So let's clear all that. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to block in something that's kind of interesting. I'm actually going to start on this side and kind of fill this area in. because there is a tendency, I think, because we're all kind of we have that Middle Earth map just kind of ingrained in our brain so much, to make the continent to be showing primarily the west side of the coastline, on just like the map of Middle Earth. So I'm trying to do something a little bit different by having the map coming this way. And anything that's paper would be part of the ocean. Obviously you could invert this if you wanted to, but it's just the method that I'm using for this particular one. And you can see that I'm being pretty sloppy about this. You know, I might even erase some of this away. So this is either part of the ocean that's surrounding this, or maybe it's even a lake, something like that. But you definitely don't want to be terribly precise at this point. You want happy, as you know, Bob Ross would say, happy little accidents occurring. So as I'm erasing, I'm like, oh, you know what? This could be islands. So I'm actually gonna leave some of that there. Gonna refine this, and you can change the size of your brush. Usually I like to start with a little bit larger shapes and then refine it down to smaller and smaller shapes until I end up with something that I like. And you can do this with any brush that has a pretty rough edge texture to it. You just want to, as I was saying, modify the settings so that the scatter is up. Make sure the rotation is something that's pretty random, and that it jumps around a lot. You don't want it to be too uniform or too perfect. You want something that's going to give you some of those happy accidents. And if you want to get this exact brush that I'm using, you can go onto the freebie section on the Map Effects website. And I've actually included versions of this brush for multiple different applications like Procreate, Photoshop, Clip Studio, and stuff like that. And I've also included the actual shape of the brush if you want to pull it into GIMP or, you know, another Krita or something, whatever app that you want to use, and just start messing around with it, and you can end up with a brush that looks really similar to this. It doesn't need to be exact. Nope, that's not what I meant to do. It doesn't need to be exact, so just have fun playing with it and see what you can come up with. But if you want to kind of have some of these settings already preset so that you have this brush, like I said, just go to the Map Effects and go to the freebie section, sign up for the email list, and you'll be able to download this brush for free. All right, so we can argue how good this looks. This is just me messing around, so I would probably refine it a little bit more, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna show you the next step that I would do. So I'll just come in here and decrease the opacity, and then you can come in here and create another layer, and we'll just switch to a black so that you can see a little bit better. And I'm just gonna switch to just a general liner brush. So then at this point, you want to just roughly follow the shape of the coastlines that you've laid down. And how much exactly you follow it is really up to you. But you can see this just kind of gives you a little bit of randomness, but it really allows you to control the overall shape of the continents a little bit more than if you use some type of texture generator or something like that. You still have a lot of control in how you're putting down the coastlines and the land masses, and you're almost thinking about it more in a painting kind of way, where you're blocking in large blocks of colors and then refining as you go. So, you know, you can bring this out a little bit further, and then once we come in, if we want to, we can add some little islands in here. You know, whatever you want to do. But you can use the colors that you blocked in as a little bit of a guide to determine what you want to add or what you want to leave out. And then once you have all these coastlines blocked in, you can come in here and start adding a little bit of detail lines just to give it a little bit more texture and kind of give a bit of an indication of the shoreline that will follow your coastlines. And you can see that just by scribbling in a little bit of these lighter lines, it actually gives it quite a bit more character and depth. And this is something you can do, especially if you want an area to look a little bit more rocky and jagged. Adding a little bit more detail here can go a long way. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to seeing your map.